In addition to his work as a community activist, Holmes serves as a trustee for the Village of Dalton. The civil lawsuit against the Village of Dalton, Thornton Township, Tiffany Henyard, and Holmes himself alleges that Holmes sexually assaulted a Dalton Village employee while on a village business trip to Las Vegas in May of 2023.
Better known for his work as a crisis responder helping victims of gun violence, Andrew Holmes has also served for several years as a trustee in the Village of Dalton. Holmes is now named in a civil lawsuit filed Monday by a Dalton police officer and former member of Mayor Tiffany Henyard's security detail, as well as a former village employee who believes she was sexually assaulted by Holmes.
This is our last night in Vegas. When we clock out, isn't anybody hitting the strip with me? You know, it's my birthday. And everybody said no, or they had something else to do, but Andrew.
A bit of backstory before we get into the victim's testimony is that Mayor Tiffany Henyard and her entourage went to Las Vegas in May of 2023. This entourage included Dalton and Thornton Township members, including Fenia Dukes and Trustee Andrew Holmes. It was during the last evening of the trip where Officer Byron Miles received a phone call from Trustee Andrew Holmes, in which he described a bunch of acts of the sexual nature and may have suggested that a lot of that was not consensual. So, being the dutiful officer that he was, he began recording the call, which eventually did switch over into FaceTime. So a lawsuit was then issued after this event, and both the victim and Officer Miles alleged that retaliation occurred towards them.
Andrew Holmes sexually assaulted a former village employee and that Mayor Tiffany Henyard tried to cover it up to protect herself. The two are both named as defendants in the suit. The Las Vegas Police Department confirms that they are conducting an ongoing investigation involving Holmes, but did not say if it involves sexual misconduct. According to the lawsuit, Dalton Mayor Tiffany Henyard and more than a dozen others attended a conference in Vegas last May. On May 26, after a group dinner, a Dalton employee went out with Holmes, who is a Dalton trustee. She says at some point that evening she felt disoriented and lightheaded and felt as if the ground was moving. She then blacked out. The lawsuit goes on to allege that same night, Andrew Holmes called the mayor's security detail, who is also a Dalton police officer, to discuss his alleged sexual advances. That officer had reason to believe Holmes was drunk since the conversation was out of the ordinary. The officer then started to record Holmes before FaceTiming him. Once he FaceTimed him, he saw Holmes shirtless and the alleged victim partially undressed as Holmes pointed the camera toward her. The officer couldn't tell if she consented. The next morning, she woke up fully dressed, unclear of what happened. Upon return, the lawsuit claims Holmes talked to the officer again, admitting he had sex with the village employee on the trip. The officer then advised her to seek medical attention. The alleged victim then requested a meeting with Mayor Tiffany Henyard, who said she'd take care of it. Now, that meeting allegedly resulted in the former village employee being terminated, along with the officer being demoted and removed from the mayor's security detail.
But if you know a bit about Tiffany Henyard, then these revelations shouldn't be that shocking, since she is the same person who made a friend of hers, who is a registered you-know-what offender, a code enforcement officer.
Residents of South Suburban Dalton reacting to a Fox 32 investigation that found a new village employee with a dangerous criminal past.
He is a registered child sex offender, and he's now been hired by the village to go into people's homes and businesses.
Now, furious village trustees are taking steps to curb the mayor's power. Fox 32's Dane Placco broke the story, and he has the latest from Dalton.
What is the situation involving your background?
Well, my background, the childhood background, over 30 years ago.
46-year-old Lavelle Redmond wasn't happy to see us when we encountered him today behind Dalton Village Hall. But listen again to the person on the phone telling him to stop talking.
30 years ago.
We don't know who that is, but we do know who got Redmond his village job. Redmond is close to new Dalton Mayor Tiffany Henyard and worked on her campaign. Records obtained by Fox 32 show that on September 20th, Redmond was hired as a code enforcement officer for the village of Dalton, a job that gives him access inside homes and businesses, which is why Dalton residents were shocked when we showed them what we found online.
Oh my God! Don't they supposed to do background checks before they allow these people in these kind of positions?
One would think, right?
Yes.
That's because Redmond is listed as a child sex offender on the Illinois State Police Registry. He served 24 years of a 50-year sentence for taking part in the brutal gang rape and beating of 2 young girls in the Roseland neighborhood in 1991. News reports at the time say Redmond was one of 4 young men who kidnapped the girls and took them to an abandoned garage where they were sexually assaulted and beaten with boards and guns.
I would be terrified to know now if he had come to my house to do a code inspection. I would be terrified.
That's crazy. I don't know. He won't get in my house, though.
Dalton trustees say Redmond was hired directly by Mayor Henyard and her village administrator, former Cook County Circuit Court Clerk Dorothy Brown.
Did the trustees have any input in this hire?
No, the trustees have not had any input on any hire since the swearing in of this administration.
So the victim, Fenia Dukes, has decided to speak out specifically on claims about the trustee, Mr. Holmes, and the super mayor herself, and how both of them made her feel as though she was part of the family, and then that lulled her into a false sense of security.
So it was she took me under her wing. It was like mentoring. It was like learning different opportunities. Like I said, she was trying to coach me to let me know that this is the game. Like that's our favorite thing. This is the game. I'm teaching you the game, and I want you to be able to have opportunities that I had because I am the first Black woman mayor of Dalton, and you can be the one taking my seat. Like that was just one of those things that she always wanted. She always wanted to elevate herself, and then elevate people under her, which was what she said that she wanted to do. And upon meeting him and then being around him, I deemed him the Uncle Drew. Like I gave him that name, and it went all the way down to the mayor calling him Uncle Drew just regularly. That was just his name because he made everyone feel comfortable. I've even been in places by myself with him, in cars, wherever, by myself, plenty of times before ever anything. And he's never gave me an inkling of he'll harm me, he will make a pass at me. He's never done any of that. So yes, I deemed his Uncle Drew because now I feel like if I step out of here and how I know that you fight for these other people, these other victims and all of that, you have my back. I'm pretty sure I'm safe if I'm with you. And that was the relationship that he allowed me to take from him. The other assistant, just, being in our modes of being an assistant, we're saying stuff out loud, especially if the mayor's there, because she's always doing something, so she wants to hear what we have while she's doing something or whatever. So now that assistant, she'll always say, okay, well, we got this upcoming trip. And then she said the dates, and she said May 21st. And I was like, that's my 31st birthday. I've never been there. I didn't necessarily know if I was going or not, but I definitely said, I want to make that trip. So Tiffany was, telling me like, this is not, no trip like that. Like this, we're going down there for business. And I said, well, I definitely understand, but I still never been in the vicinity of Vegas. So even if I could just be there and it's my birthday, I would still feel good. But I was like, you know how hard I work anyway, so I'm not even worried about that. And that was the conversation. This is our last night in Vegas. When we clock out, isn't anybody hitting the strip with me? It's my birthday. And everybody said no, or they had something else to do, but Andrew. Miles did say that if he's done doing whatever he was doing, he'll catch up with us. Okay, so fine, but I at least knew I got a man with me, I'm gonna make it home. I ain't even gotta worry about try to go on the strip by myself. I legitimately thought that, I was gonna make it home. Until my last memory was me waking up in his room. Why not now? Right? And you'll hear so many stories of, oh, well, she waited 20 years and she waited 30 years. I knew if it was ever happened to me, absolutely not. That I knew justice needed to come immediately. And that's why. So it might seem like it's a now for you, but this has been a long journey for me already. And I've already put my suffering aside. I put my depression aside. I've worked on all that. I did my praying on if I should be sitting in front of you today saying my story. And I'm ready. That's why now. And I'm not just fighting for me no more. I realize that I'm fighting for every woman that's been in my position. I'm fighting for a sister that doesn't have a voice. I'm fighting for a sister that's scared. I'm fighting for a sister who doesn't have a sister. I'm fighting, not just for me.
So I think this is a good point to point out that when you look at this entire scenario in which you have someone like the super mayor in a position of power, someone who is relying upon all the classic talking points of being a fellow minority within a minority, this is what was used to lull this woman into a false sense of security. And I think that should very much highlight one of the biggest issues that I see when we discuss these racial and gender issues, is that anybody, doesn't matter how they look, can make you feel safe and put you into a position that can cause harm to you. And so I think that rather than just being skeptical of everyone, we see this hyperfixation on making sure that it's people that look like you or talk like you or have the same sort of ideology, when in reality, not everything that glitters is gold. So on that note, I encourage people to check out NBC Chicago for the full interview. This is the Commentary King, and I'll see you around.